Hello and welcome to this deep dive, which today is focused on advanced English listening practice.
Hello.
We're tackling a huge topic, one that feels monumental to a lot of people, but it's totally achievable.
It really is.
The topic is the best way to learn English alone.
And it's such an essential topic. I think for anyone who's sort of past that intermediate stage, the traditional classroom model, it often hits a ceiling, you know?
Right. It feels like you can only get so far with a textbook and a teacher.
You do. You hit a point where the rigid schedule, the standardized content, it just doesn't serve your specialized needs anymore. And there's this perception that you need that external structure to reach mastery.
That's the myth we're trying to bust today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our mission is to really lay out the blueprint for self-directed success.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at how the most effective, the most personalized, and honestly, the most rewarding path to that C1, even C2 level is one you design for yourself.
For sure. And that independent approach, it's not about isolation. That's the key thing to get across.
It's empowerment.
It is. It's empowerment. We're going to explore how you can build this dynamic, personalized learning ecosystem.
An ecosystem, I like that term.
Yeah, it's about leveraging the best psychological strategies and, of course, the cutting-edge technology that's available now to achieve real proficiency, but completely on your own terms.
We're giving you the tactics for what our sources call an independent ascent.
Love that.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint. We have to start with the fundamentals, the big why. So part one, the philosophy of independent ascent. Every long journey, starts with defining the destination.
Absolutely.
Before you even think about downloading an app or opening a textbook, you have to understand your why. We have to get past this really vague idea of fluency.
Oh, fluency is the most useless word in language learning. It means nothing and everything.
Exactly. So you have to articulate genuinely specific goals. If you don't know the specific target, you're just sort of drifting, aren't you?
You're just drifting. And defining that goal, that's your operational anchor. It's the difference between saying, I want better English, which is fine.
But it's not a goal.
It's not a goal. A real goal is structuring it like, I need to successfully negotiate a contract with a U.S. supplier without any external translation by the end of this quarter.
That's specific.
Or I want to be able to fully comprehend a university lecture on quantum physics delivered in English without needing to go back and read the transcript afterwards.
And those specific, really clearly articulated goals, that's the fuel. That's what sustains the long-term effort, which connects directly to this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation.
It's such a vital psychological shift. Extrinsic motivation is when you relied on external pressure.
Like your boss telling you that you have to improve.
Right. My boss demands it, or I have to pass this specific test. And while that's necessary for some people, that kind of motivation, it just evaporates the second that pressure is gone. But intrinsic motivation, that's fueled by genuine passion. Maybe you are just driven by the sheer joy of reading the Financial Times in its original form.
Or wanting to connect with some very specific academic content that's only in English.
Precisely. And when that drive is internal, it just magnifies the power of autonomy. The second you take control of your learning path,
you own it.
You own it. You choose the content, you set the pace, you pick the methods. It's yours.
And that ownership, it has to have a huge impact on engagement and even more on retention.
Oh, it's massive. You're no longer just performing tasks someone assigned to you. You are actively selecting material that is immediately relevant and interesting to you, the learner.
So it sticks better.
That natural relevance is so much more sticky than some random lesson plan from a textbook.
Okay, so that idea of autonomy leads us right into the really profound advantages of self-study. And I think the biggest one has to be personalization.
Oh, without a doubt. Just think about a typical classroom.
30 people, one-size-fits-all lesson.
Right. And if you're a highly kinetic learner, someone who needs movement and physical interaction to learn, that standard lesson plan might only be, 20% effective for you?
Yes, that.
Yeah. But as an independent learner, you can tailor the entire experience to your unique learning style, whether you're visual, auditory, or, kinetic, and to your specific interests.
So if your career is in biotech, you can just immerse yourself in biotech content.
Exactly. Every single minute you spend learning is hyper-relevant, and that is what guarantees the experience is never, ever boring.
And then there's the flexibility, which is it's revolutionary. Really? Traditional learning, it meant strict schedules or, historically you had to move abroad for real immersion.
Right. That was the only way.
But now you can fit 45 minutes of really intensive English practice around a 9-to-5 job or during your commute or even just while you're waiting for a meeting to start.
That convenience is what makes daily practice possible. And we know scientifically that daily, short, regular practice is just infinitely more effective than
those long, painful marathon sessions on a weekend.
Exactly. You're not cramming.
Yeah.
You integrate English seamlessly into the rhythm of your actual life.
We really have to talk about the cost effectiveness.
Oh, for sure.
In this digital age, advanced education has been totally democratized.
It really has. The access you have now to high-quality resources is staggering. You have AI grammar platforms, huge digital libraries, language exchange partners all over the world.
And so many of them are free or available for a tiny subscription cost. Mastery isn't gated by a massive tuition fee anymore.
Or where you happen to live. And, beyond just the language gains, you're picking up these essential non-linguistic benefits.
The so-called soft skills.
Yes. Independent study forces you to become proficient in self-discipline, in sophisticated time management, problem-solving, resilience.
You're learning how to learn.
That's it. It's a meta skill. And that benefits every single area of your personal and professional life.
But, okay, independence. It can be a double-edged sword. To really get those benefits, you have to be proactive. You have to anticipate and overcome the challenges that derail so many self-learners.
And the first major hurdle is almost always accountability.
Right. No teacher selecting your homework.
Yeah.
So who's making sure you actually show up when the grammar gets difficult or you feel like you're not making progress?
You have to become your own taskmaster, but it needs to be with metrics.
Not just willpower.
No, not just, I'll try harder. The strategy has to be rigorous and data-driven. We're talking detailed tracking of your daily input. How many hours you listen, how many words you learn, pages you read.
And your output.
Minutes spoken, words written. You're not just tracking vague goals, you're tracking measurable outcomes.
And I think it's important to tie that tracking to some kind of reward system.
A system of mini rewards, absolutely.
All right.
Let's say you complete a really difficult grammar unit.
You finally mastered the subjunctive or something.
Yes. So you treat yourself. Watch a movie in English. Have a favorite snack. These small, frequent, positive reinforcements, they keep the momentum high. It makes accountability an internal, sustainable system instead of just, a source of guilt.
Okay, so you've got accountability sorted. What's next? The isolation. The phrase learning alone sounds, lonely.
It does, but that's a choice in the modern world. It really is.
You have to leverage the connectivity that's out there.
Absolutely. Isolation is only a risk if you choose to silo your practice. You can use online communities that are focused on language exchange. You can join active Reddit threads about specific topics in English. You can use apps that connect you instantly with the native speakers all over the world.
So your solitary study time is really just the preparation.
It's the prep work for your globally connected practice time.
I think the biggest pitfall, especially for the kind of person listening to this, the hyper-curious, driven learner, is information overload.
Yes. Paralysis by analysis.
There are so many resources out there that you spend more time trying to choose the best app than you do actually using it.
And that's a highly tactical problem. The solution is to curate your resources effectively. For an advanced learner, this means creating a small, focused toolkit.
Okay, what does that look like?
You select maybe 3 to 5 highly specialized resources. For instance, one spaced repetition app, one AI conversational partner, one high-level reading platform, and maybe one grammar diagnostic tool. That's it.
So how do you know if a resource is actually working for you? Beyond just, I like the interface.
It's about utility and efficiency. You have to ask, does this tool specifically target my weakest skill? Does it offer specific correction features beyond just basic grammar, like checking for tone or register?
And you have to be ruthless about it.
You have to be. Impose a time limit. Say, I'm going to test this new resource rigorously for 2 weeks. If it hasn't shown you clear, measurable value in those 2 weeks, ditch it. Get rid of it and refocus on your core toolkit. You have to prevent that urge to constantly chase the next big thing.
Okay, last challenge. And this is a critical one for advanced learners. Uncorrected mistakes. The ones that fossilize and become bad habits. In a classroom, you get that immediate correction. How does an independent learner find targeted feedback?
They have to be proactive, and they have to invest strategically. So self-correction by recording your own output. That's your first line of defense.
We'll talk more about that later.
We will. But for real nuance, you need external input. So maybe you budget for occasional targeted sessions with an affordable online tutor. You don't need them for everything, just to address the recurring error patterns you've identified in your own tracking.
That's smart. Use them like a consultant, not a full-time teacher.
Precisely. Or you can use peer correction groups online, or even some paid writing services that focus specifically on stylistic review. The goal is to make sure that those subtle structural errors get identified and fixed before they become permanent.
All right, with that really powerful mindset established, let's move into the actual structure of the language. Part 2, building the foundational pillars. And we have to start with the core 4, listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
The 4 essential skills. And the critical insight for any independent learner is understanding just how profoundly interconnected they are.
Right, they don't exist in a vacuum.
Not at all. Improvement in one area just naturally enhances the others. So for example, if you do a lot of extensive reading, it dramatically increases the complexity of the vocabulary you can then use in your writing.
And better listening comprehension must help with your speaking.
Directly. More sophisticated listening comprehension directly informs your ability to produce accurate pronunciation and, just as importantly, natural intonation.
It's a holistic system, but I think we all have a tendency to gravitate towards our strengths.
We do.
If I find reading easy, I might end up spending 80% of my time just reading, and I neglect speaking, which then becomes this huge structural vulnerability.
And that lack of balance threatens the stability of the entire structure. Balanced development means you have to intentionally dedicate adequate attention to all 4 skills.
So you have to schedule it.
You have to schedule time blocks specifically for your perceived weak spots. If speaking is your challenge, you must schedule dedicated production time, even if it's uncomfortable at first, to force yourself out of that passive intake cycle.
Okay, let's start with the structure that organizes everything else. Grammar. Our sources call this the skeleton of English.
And for advanced learners, we really need to shift the approach. It's not about simple rule memorization anymore. It's about deep conceptual mastery.
What does that mean in practice?
Understanding grammar conceptually means grasping why we use the passive voice in academic writing, for example, or why the present perfect tense is required to link a past action to a present outcome. It's about the function, not just the form.
And this learning should happen through context, right? Not just isolated drills from a workbook.
Yes, exactly. You learn grammar by seeing it in action, in authentic contexts. You observe how a native speaker structures a complex sentence in a specialized journal article, or you hear the subtle use of conditionals in a business negotiation.
And then the key is to immediately move to active application.
You have to.
So how do we bridge that gap? Going from passively recognizing a grammar rule to actively being able to use it yourself.
It requires practical exercises that force you to produce something. So if you're struggling with, say, the third conditional...
Something real past, yeah.
Right. Then you sit down and you write 5 sentences describing counterfactual scenarios that are highly relevant to your own life or your career. You make it personal.
And are there specific resources for this kind of advanced work?
For sure. I mean, tools like the Purdue OWL website are fantastic, not just for basic syntax checking, but for the really complex rules related to formal academic English, citation norms, complex punctuation, all the kinds of structures that really distinguish advanced, sophisticated writing.
Okay, moving from the skeleton to the flesh and blood vocabulary. We know that just memorizing simple word lists is really inefficient. So what's the advanced strategy for contextual acquisition?
It's all about focusing on multi-word units. You have to move beyond just learning a single word's definition.
You mean learning the words it hangs out with?
Exactly. You learn the word within its context, the collocations, the phrasal verbs, the prepositional phrases it always lives with. So for instance, instead of just learning the word challenge, you learn the full phrase to rise to the challenge, or a daunting challenge.
Because that's how you achieve that natural, native-like phrasing.
That's the only way.
And what about the best strategies for converting words you recognize, your passive vocabulary, into words you can actually use, your active vocabulary?
The gold standard here is leveraging spaced repetition systems, or SRS, like Anki. But your strategy for using it has to be advanced.
No more simple flashcards.
No, you have to prioritize creating what are called contextual close deletions.
Okay, break that down.
It's basically a flashcard with a full, meaningful sentence, but the target word or phrase is blanked out. So you're not just recalling a definition. You're forced to fill in the word in its proper context. It tests both comprehension and application at the same time.
That makes sense. What about optimizing the review process itself? An advanced learner might have thousands of vocabulary items. That could get overwhelming really fast.
It could. So you have to customize the SRS interval algorithm. For words you feel completely confident using in your own speech or writing, you push the review interval out aggressively. Maybe you only review them once every 90 days.
And for the new, difficult stuff,
you keep the interval short. And most importantly, you use etymology and root words. If you understand a few key Latin or Greek roots, you can suddenly deduce the meaning of dozens of related high-level words. It creates this exponential growth in your lexicon.
Okay, now for what can be the trickiest part for self-learners. The music of the language. Pronunciation and intonation. This feels like the most vulnerable area because it's so hard to self-correct.
It is, and it requires extensive oral training. The number one strategy for the independent learner has to be rigorous shadowing.
Explain what that is.
Shadowing is when you mimic a native speaker from a podcast, a speech, a movie clip. At the same time they are speaking, you're trying to copy their exact rhythm, their stress, their sound quality.
So it's not just listening.
It's not just listening. It's physical training for your mouth and your ear.
The sources also mention the International Phonetic Alphabet, the IPA. For someone without a linguistics background, how is that actually a practical tool?
Think of it as a diagnostic roadmap. Let's say you repeatedly mispronounce a specific sound, like the difference between the I in ship and the EN in sheep.
A very common one.
Very common. So you look up the IPA symbols for those two sounds in a dictionary. You can then find targeted exercises, which are known as minimal pairs, that focus exclusively on that one specific sound distinction.
So you're not just guessing based on how a word looks.
No more guessing. You're relying on a universal guide for pronunciation. It takes the ambiguity out of English spelling.
So that's for the individual sounds. But what about the melody of the language? The intonation patterns, the stress, the rhythm?
That's how meaning is actually conveyed. You can stress different words in the exact same sentence and change the meaning entirely. To master this, you absolutely must record yourself and critically listen back. Play your recording immediately after the native speaker model you're trying to copy.
And what are you listening for?
You're listening for the gaps. Where does your rhythm break down? Where are you placing the stress incorrectly? This process turns a passive listening exercise into an active, self-correcting feedback loop.
And the goal here, it's not to sound like a perfect native speaker from California, right?
Not at all. The goal should always be prioritizing clarity and effective communication over the often unrealistic goal of completely erasing your accent. It's about being understood clearly and confidently.
Okay, so we've established the right mindset and we've broken down the foundational skills. Now, in part 3, we get into the execution, crafting the personalized strategy. And the first step, as we talked about, is an honest self-assessment.
Exactly. You have to know your starting point. You need to use reliable online placement tests, something like the ones from Cambridge English or the EFSST, to accurately benchmark your current proficiency.
Why is that so important?
Because if you test at a solid B2, you know exactly what high-level C1 grammar and a vocabulary you need to be targeting. If you just guess your level, you end up studying material that's either too easy, which is boring, or too hard, which is just frustrating and demotivating.
So once we know our starting point, we define the destination using that SMART goals framework.
Yes. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This is absolutely non-negotiable for self-study success.
So let's workshop this. A vague goal would be, I want to improve my writing.
Right. A SMART goal would be, by the end of the next 6 weeks, I will write 3 coherent 800-word articles that receive a style critique rating of at least 4 out of 5 from an online writing service.
See, that's something you can actually measure. It's quantifiable and it's externally testable.
And setting those smaller mini milestones along the way is so vital for maintaining your momentum, especially during those long, inevitable stretches of difficult study.
The psychological benefit of that has to be enormous.
It is. They provide these frequent little dopamine hits, and they reaffirm that your effort is actually worthwhile. You're not just waiting to celebrate at the finish line a year from now.
You're celebrating mastering that tricky set of phrasal verbs this week.
Exactly. Or completing the first half of a difficult novel. These small, incremental wins are what prevent your motivation from decaying over time.
Now let's talk about routine. Because the cornerstone of all independent success has to be consistency.
It's what we call the consistency principle. And we cannot stress this enough. Short, regular study sessions, say 45 minutes every single day, are vastly superior to trying to cram on the weekend.
Why is that?
Language learning is about building synaptic connections in your brain. And those connections strengthen through frequent, small deposits of information, not through massive, infrequent overloads.
And within that consistent routine, how do we vary our activities to keep from burning out?
Variety engages different parts of the brain. You should try to combine different types of effort.
Like what?
Like maybe some low-effort intake, like watching a TV show with English subtitles, combined with some high-effort output, like a focused 20-minute writing session, and then some efficiency work, like a 10-minute SRS review.
So you cycle through them.
You cycle these activities in short blocks. Never stay on one type of activity so long that mental fatigue starts to set in.
I find a lot of self-learners struggle with how to really integrate English into their daily life, especially when they aren't surrounded by native speakers.
This is where you have to consciously create what we call the English bubble.
Okay.
And it requires both passive and active integration. Passive means you just surround yourself with the background noise of the language, English news radio, technical lectures, music while you're doing chores.
And active engagement.
Active engagement means consciously shifting your internal monologue into English. You narrate simple tasks to yourself. You use English for every digital interaction you have.
So changing the language settings on all your devices.
Everything. Phone, computer. You use English for your professional communication. You make it the default language of your life as much as possible.
Let's focus on that immersion from home piece, specifically with media consumption, listening, and watching. What's the strategic approach for an advanced learner?
For an advanced listener, it's about specificity and challenge. You shouldn't just watch any show. You should start with high-level podcasts or audiobooks on specialized topics you already understand well in your native language.
So the input is comprehensible.
Exactly. You already have the context. For video, you can use a strategic subtitle progression.
What does that look like?
First, you watch a difficult scene with subtitles in your native language, just to grasp the context. Then you rewatch that same scene, but with English subtitles, to focus on the specific vocabulary and structure.
And the final step.
Finally, you watch it with no subtitles at all. And that's how you train your ear to parse rapid natural speech.
Okay, and for extensive reading. How does an advanced learner get past the graded readers and into truly native content?
The progression has to be targeted. As soon as you're comfortable with high-level graded readers, you immediately transition to consuming high-volume native content that aligns with your core interests.
So academic papers, industry blogs.
Sophisticated literary criticism, deep dive long-form journalism, whatever you're into. The goal of extensive reading is to read quickly. You prioritize general comprehension and absorbing the structure, not stopping to look up every single new word.
But when you do stop, the reading has to be active.
Absolutely. Active reading involves techniques that force your brain to retain and critically engage with the material.
What kind of techniques?
Use digital tools to highlight new vocabulary and collocations. After you read a difficult section, immediately try to summarize the main arguments in your own English words. This forces both output and a comprehension check.
That's a great tip.
And for academic reading, try practicing predicting the author's next argument before you read their concluding paragraph. It's a great critical thinking exercise.
Finally, we have to talk about active practice. Production. Even when you're completely alone, speaking aloud can feel a bit strange at first, but it's the only way to build that muscle memory.
It is the most critical component for achieving fluency. The starting point is shadowing, which we talked about. You physically copy the audio model, focusing on the cadence and the rhythm.
And then you move on from there.
Then you move to self-talk. This can involve just narrating your actions throughout the day. I'm turning on the kettle now because I need a coffee.
It sounds silly, but it works.
It absolutely works. Or you can engage in internal role-playing, where you simulate a difficult negotiation you have coming up or a demanding presentation.
And there's one non-negotiable step that turns this practice into a targeted assessment.
Recording yourself. You have to capture your self-talk or your role-playing sessions. The act of listening back is just essential for critical self-correction.
And you're listening for?
You're listening for where you stumbled. Which grammar structure did you misuse? This immediately highlights the error patterns you need to work on in your next focused study block.
And for writing, the same dedication to structured output is necessary.
For sure. Daily journaling of your reflections in English is fundamental. But for advanced output, you need structural complexity.
So not just what I did today.
Right. You need to practice drafting targeted communication, a professional email using formal register, or a sophisticated social media post where you argue a nuanced political or economic viewpoint.
And what about that summarizing technique again?
It's maybe the most challenging and rewarding exercise. You take a complex piece of content you've consumed, an academic article, a news report, and you rewrite it into a coherent summary. It forces you to practice cohesive structure and deploy high-level vocabulary.
We are so lucky to be in this golden age of self-directed learning, really thanks to technology. So in part 4, leveraging technology and mindset, let's explore the Advanced Digital Learning Toolkit.
Right. For learners who are kind of bridging that gap between B2 and C1, some of the gamified tools like Duolingo or Memrise can still be useful, maybe for refreshing some foundational knowledge.
But the real power is in the more specialized systems.
That's where it is.
Let's talk about Anki for spaced repetition. We mentioned its function, but what's its essential role for the really advanced learner?
Anki is just indispensable for maximizing your efficiency and retention, especially when you're dealing with idiomatic expressions and specific low-frequency academic vocabulary.
So the really tricky stuff.
The tricky stuff. If you're learning the nuances between 10 different words for argument, Anki ensures you review them at the exact moment you're about to forget them. It minimizes any wasted effort.
And for interaction, if you can't physically go to classes, what tools are vital?
Platforms like HelloTalk or Tandem are key for language exchange. They connect you with native speakers for informal speaking and writing practice.
So low-stakes interaction.
Immediate low-stakes interaction. But for more structured feedback, you really have to consider investing in platforms like italki or Reply. They offer affordable, specialized online tutors who can specifically target the weaknesses you've found through your self-assessment.
And for reference tools, an advanced learner needs more than just a simple translation app.
Oh, absolutely. You need contextual dictionaries, things like Merriam-Webster Learners or the Oxford Learners dictionaries.
What do they give you that a standard dictionary doesn't?
They provide multiple example sentences, they explain the subtle differences between synonyms, and they define common collocations. For writing, something like Grammarly is useful, but only if you use it analytically.
Don't just click accept.
Never just click accept. You have to use it to identify why the suggestion was made. That turns the error into a real learning opportunity.
This brings us to what feels like a revelation in self-study. AI as your language partner. This just fundamentally transforms the solitary learning experience.
AI models like ChatGPT or Gemini are absolute game changers because they offer infinite non-judgmental practice.
Non-judgmental is a big one.
It's huge. You can practice conversations 2, 4 to 7, and you can tailor the interaction exactly to your needs. But the advanced learner has to use advanced prompting.
Okay, so how does an advanced learner prompt an AI effectively?
You need to instruct the AI to act as a specific type of partner, a level C1 or C2 tutor, for instance.
Give me an example prompt.
You could instruct it, act as a rigorous university editor. I'm going to give you a summary. Critique it for register, tone, and logical flow, not just for basic grammar.
I see.
Or generate a debate scenario about economic policy and only respond using idiomatic language and sophisticated vocabulary. I want you to challenge my use of passive structures. You force the AI to give you the high-level feedback you actually need.
And AI is also a huge help with the more technical aspects of output production?
Yes. If you use a speech-to-text feature, which is often built right into operating systems or in the AI chat interfaces.
It types what you say.
Right. And the AI instantly diagnoses your pronunciation clarity.
Yep.
If it mishears your attempt at a word, you know immediately where your sound gap is.
And the reverse is true as well.
Conversely, yeah. You use text-to-speech, you can generate text and then listen to the AI read it back, and that provides you with the perfect, accurate model for correct intonation and rhythm that you can then shadow.
Now, let's pivot to the mental framework that's required for all this to work, the mindset of success. And it really seems to rely heavily on embracing your mistakes.
This is a massive psychological hurdle, especially for perfectionists. You have to reframe failure. A mistake is not a setback. It's not a sign of inadequacy. It is crucial diagnostic data.
So a mistake shows you where the gaps are.
It shows you the exact gaps in your knowledge. It illuminates precisely what your next focused study block needs to target.
And this requires active error analysis. You have to turn that diagnostic data into an action plan.
I recommend developing the habit of keeping an error log. If you notice that you consistently misuse articles a and a, or you always struggle with the distinction between different conditional forms, that becomes your immediate study priority.
So you stop studying what you already know.
You stop studying what you already know and you start targeting what you actually need.
This whole process feeds into a psychological concept that's known as the output hypothesis.
Right. This hypothesis, it was developed by a linguist named Merrill Swain, and it basically states that just receiving comprehensible input, it's not enough.
Just listening and reading won't get you there.
Not all the way. The act of producing language speaking or writing and making the errors that come with it, that's what forces the learner to notice what they don't know. It pushes you to search for the correct linguistic means to convey your meaning.
So an advanced learner should actually seek out situations that force production and potential errors.
Intentionally, yes.
Finally, we have to talk about cultivating resilience and community. The journey to mastery is rarely a straight line upwards.
It's not. Progress often happens in these S-curves. You have a period of rapid ascent, and then it's followed by a really frustrating plateau.
Where you feel like you're stuck.
You feel like you're not making any progress at all. The successful independent learner understands that this is normal. When you hit a plateau, maybe your speaking quality just stagnates. You need to change your input entirely.
Shake things up.
Completely. Switch from technical reading to literature. Or shift your focus away from grammar review and into an intensive pronunciation shadowing block.
And for the independent learner, self-care is so vital to prevent burnout.
It's absolutely crucial. Language acquisition is mentally taxing. You have to build in regular breaks, and you have to ensure that your learning remains enjoyable.
Because if it becomes a source of anxiety,
you risk total abandonment. Your passion, that intrinsic motivation we talked about at the beginning, that's your shield against burnout.
And maintaining some kind of social connection through online forums or groups, that provides critical motivation.
It really does. Finding that community validates your struggles and it celebrates your wins. And there's also immense pedagogical value in practicing teaching something to solidify your own understanding.
How does that work?
If you have to explain a complex grammar rule or a nuanced idiom to a fellow learner, it forces you to clarify the information in your own mind. It moves it from conscious knowledge to automatic comprehension.
As your proficiency pushes up into those C levels, C1, C2, the focus shifts entirely. It moves from accuracy to nuance and complexity. So in our final section, part 5, Advanced Strategies and Maintenance, we're exploring how to delve deeper into nuance.
And this is really the difference between speaking correctly and speaking naturally. It's often framed as fluency versus idiomatic mastery.
So it's about more than just the words.
So much more. You have to proactively learn the cultural expressions, the regional slang, the phrasal verbs, the figurative language like metaphors and similes. If someone tells you, that presentation knocked out of the park, and you don't get the baseball metaphor,
you miss the emotional tone completely.
Entirely.
And tied directly to that is mastering register and tone, knowing when to be formal and when it's okay to be informal.
This is a key marker of truly advanced proficiency. It requires understanding that the exact same concept needs drastically different vocabulary and sentence structure depending on your audience.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you're practicing transforming a formal business request, like, we request your assistance in mitigating the risks associated with this undertaking.
Very formal.
Into an informal text message, which might just be, can you help us out with this tricky project so we don't mess up? Practicing that kind of transformation is crucial.
And the ultimate test of advanced nuance has to be engaging in critical thinking in English.
Yes. You have to practice analyzing complex arguments, expressing highly nuanced opinions, and engaging in sophisticated evidence-based debates.
So you use your input to fuel your output.
Exactly. You summarize a difficult opinion piece you read, and then you write a rebuttal to it, making sure you're using cohesive devices and advanced discourse markers.
Let's continue on that with targeted output and correction. Specifically, the power of storytelling.
Storytelling, whether you're summarizing a novel you've consumed or you're creating a totally original narrative, it forces you to expand beyond simple subject-verb-object sentences.
Right, it demands more complex structures.
It demands complex conjunctions, relative clauses, and these cohesive devices that link paragraphs together smoothly. And that is the hallmark of sophisticated C2 level writing.
Once you're producing language at that complex level, generic correction from an app isn't going to be enough.
No, it's no longer sufficient. You need highly personalized feedback. At this stage, you really have to utilize online tutors or dedicated writing services, specifically for style and nuance review.
So they're not just looking for grammar mistakes.
They're helping you move your writing from being merely grammatically correct to being stylistically compelling and sophisticated. They're correcting things like repetitive sentence structure or an overuse of the passive voice.
The source material also suggests adopting what it calls an output-first approach once a learner hits that intermediate stage. What does that mean?
It's an intense, deliberate strategy. Once you have a strong B2 foundation, you intentionally prioritize production over passive intake. You set aggressive production challenges for yourself.
Like what?
Like committing to having a 30-minute conversation every single day, or writing a weekly detailed report on something in your industry. It's a deliberate application of that comprehensible output hypothesis we mentioned earlier.
And it forces those structures you've learned into permanent mastery.
Exactly. You're forcing them from knowledge into skill.
Finally, we have to recognize that fluency, it isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a lifestyle. And that requires constant maintenance and evolution.
Lifelong learning is absolutely necessary because language is alive, it's dynamic. You have to constantly diversify your input to stay sharp.
So consuming content with different regional accents.
Different genres, rapidly evolving slang, new media trends. This diversification prevents your English from stagnating or, becoming dated.
And a phenomenal way to solidify your own understanding is by teaching or mentoring others.
It's so powerful when you have to explain a really conceptual difference, like the subtle uses of the subjunctive mood or the difference between imply and infer. It just cements your own comprehension.
It moves that knowledge from temporary memory to permanent structure.
It's the ultimate form of active review.
And the final stage of maintenance is to keep setting new, increasingly advanced challenges. You never really finish learning.
Never. You set ambitious external goals. Maybe it's public speaking through an organization like Toastmasters?
Or pursuing an advanced academic certification.
Exactly, like getting an IELTS or TOEFL score that's targeted at specialized universities. Or you could take on a big creative project, like writing a specialized blog or even a short novel entirely in English. These goals ensure you continue to apply and expand your mastery.
This has been a monumental, really tactical exploration of the independent path to English mastery. We've covered, everything from defining your intrinsic motivation and optimizing your SRS
to leveraging cutting-edge AI as your own personal tutor.
The big takeaway for you listening is this. Self-study, it demands discipline, it demands curiosity, and a willingness to embrace your mistakes as essential data.
But by defining your specific operational goals, building a tailored learning ecosystem that maximizes your efficiency, and strategically using the specialized digital tools that are available to you, independent study is, without question, the most effective path to achieving true lifelong English proficiency.
So what does this all mean for you right now, today?
Well, this raises an important question, doesn't it? Considering all the advanced, non-judgmental conversational strategies we've discussed, especially the power of generative AI, how can you immediately leverage a digital resource today to force some structured, high-level, comprehensible output?
What's one thing you could do?
Exactly. Could you ask an AI to critique the tone of an important email you need to send tomorrow? Or could you use it to role-play a difficult conversation you anticipate having next week?
That is the perfect challenge to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into self-mastery.
My pleasure.
If you found this deep dive valuable and you want more insights just like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.